The private equity owners are leaning on the CEOs and the CROs to embrace AI. And the CEOs and CROs are asking the question, how do I know when it's working? Because what I'm trying to do is either get things to move faster or more reliably or in greater quantity. Most of that I'm going to see in those bow tie metrics. And then what we talk about is look for a minimum viable signal loop.
Welcome to Go-to-Market Playmakers, where we bring you winning go-to-market strategies from the industry's best. Each episode, we sit down with B2B tech SaaS founders, executives, and industry playmakers who've mastered the art of taking products and services to market. Whether you're scaling a startup, refining your go-to-market motion, or driving revenue growth through a channel program or a partner ecosystem, this is where you'll learn the plays that work. I'm your host, Jeremy Balius. Today's theme is AI-led go-to-market. How AI agents are reshaping the SaaS revenue team. I'm joined by Dave Boyce from Winning by Design. Dave is the executive chairman and executive vice principal of product at Winning by Design, which is a global B2B growth advisory firm that helps recurring revenue companies architect sustainable growth. Currently, Dave and the team are serving over 1,000 organizations around the world, including companies like Adobe and Uber Eats and Calendly. He's also a board member at Forrester, focusing on product development, corporate strategy with them. He's teaching at BYU's Marriott School of Business, teaching product-led growth, B2B sales, marketing, and career strategy. And he's just written a book on product-led growth called Freemium. It's publishing through Stanford University Press in August of 2025. This is such a fascinating conversation, thinking about the ways in which go-to-market is evolving and shifting, and the different roles it fulfills within phases of go-to-market. It's really interesting to hear about the way that Dave is thinking about what is possible, what he has seen already, the way that he is talking to companies as they evolve their go-to-market motions. It's really shifted the way I'm thinking about AI in the context of go-to-market. I really hope this adds as much value to you as it did for me. Let's get straight into the conversation. Hey, Dave, I'm so stoked to have you on the show. Thanks for coming on.
I love it, Jeremy. Stoked is a good word for a Californian moved to Sydney, Australia. That's good.
That's it. You know it. Hey, we're here talking about AI-led go-to-market, but before we get into that topic, let's take a look backwards and start with your origin story. I'm really keen to hear about how you got to where you are today.
Oh, man. Well, long story, obviously, I'll shortcut it, but I was raised in Oklahoma, oldest of 8 kids. And lots of love in our family. Really lucky to have 2 parents who stuck together and supported us, but no money, right? Like, I'm the oldest, and I wore hand-me-downs. From whom, you may ask? People who felt sorry for us. But only because we didn't have money, not because we didn't have, supportive family. It was amazing. And then I was just lucky to be told that I could do what I wanted to do. So went to university at University of Texas and then at BYU, spent some time in Germany, and then kind of moved around, kind of following, just trying to figure out like what's my fit. So I helped build and sell 5 SaaS companies. I did an MBA along the way, and
Wow.
And just a curious guy. Just finished writing a book, and I just feel really lucky, Jeremy, to be able to, I think we are lucky to do what we do, don't you think?
I feel so lucky. It's such an exciting space to be in, and every day is just so different. Background is so varied, and you've done so much in that span of time. What's the start of Winning by Design? Where did that come together for you?
Yeah. Well, we sold a company about 4 years ago called InsideSales.com. And that was, like I said, my fifth company. Not all of them had terrific outcomes. Some of them you got to get away with your life. Some of them you do a little better. But I was, at the time, I was 50. I'm 57 now. I was 53. So now what am I going to do with this next chapter? Am I going to operate again? Are we going to build something from scratch? Am I going to take the helm of a company? And I just kept thinking, I gotta, I actually want to write a book, and I actually had been teaching. I want to teach some more, and I'm really curious about product-led growth, Jeremy. Like, some of these companies that I worked with and for had products selling themselves, and I really came to the conclusion that self-service is going to be a big theme, and it's not going to relent. Like, buyers want to be in control. They'd like to self-service their way into kind of using products and services. And so I called the founder. I'm not the founder of Winning by Design. I called the founder, a guy named Jocko, and said, "Hey, what are you doing about PLG?" And he's like, "Why do you ask?" I'm like, "I think the future belongs to it." And he said, "We're watching the same trends. We agree. We don't know the timing. Do you want to come over here and figure it out?" And I was like, you know what? If I'm writing a book and I get an offer from someone like Jocko at a place like Winning by Design to go figure something out, like, that seems like a dream scenario for this chapter of my career.
We're talking about a big shift here, and really looking to you to understand in what ways you believe AI agents are reshaping SaaS go-to-market from 2025 onwards.
It seems like every day you wake up, there's something new, right? A new update to a core model, a new process that's been automated, a new agent that's been announced, or an agent builder platform. I mean, Relevance AI is right there in Sydney. Like,
they're down the road. That's right.
Right down the road, like cranking stuff out. It's amazing. Yes, agents, and we're going to see more and more agents, and agentic AI is a thing. And but even predictive AI, and even simple kind of automations are really, really impacting the way we go to market. They're making, in some cases, we're replacing humans. In some cases, we're doing tasks on behalf of humans. In some places, we're making humans better and smarter. But I see it everywhere. And you say, 2025, yeah. Like, I fundamentally believe if you're running a company right now or go to market for a company right now, you have to get your oar in the water on AI this calendar year. Because if you're launching next calendar year and you're standing on stage and saying, "Hey, we're going to get to AI this year," it's too late. Like, you need to be able to point to something that you've already got working, that you've already got piloted, that you already have some initial results from. It doesn't mean you have to have it all figured out, but this is a very fast running train, and you can't afford to miss a fast running train. You got to get on it.
I concur. We're talking about more than just prompting large language models, aren't we?
Right.
This isn't just help me write an email, is it?
You're absolutely right. But if you're not doing that, then get to that. No shade.
Okay.
Like, if you're not prompting large kind of generalized large language models to help you write emails or copy or help you do market analysis or competitive analysis, then fine, start there. But we can do so much more than that. We can still use those same generalized models, but maybe an enterprise version of them to kind of save, to do fine tuning on kind of how we are approaching kind of essentially building flows and building agents. You see some of that with deep research that is now being released, like, ChatGPT allows you to do deep research, which is a nested series of tasks that they've prompt engineered. But we can prompt engineer stuff like that too to get complicated things done. And then you can go to like the Relevance AIs of the world and hire an agent that's been pre-engineered to execute a task, and all of that's going to come together with human motions to redefine kind of how go-to-market works. And honestly, we need to be figuring it all out. As revenue leaders, we got to be figuring it all out. So no shade if you're starting with just prompt engineering a generalized model. That can get you a long ways forward.
Tell me about, where did the thinking initially start as you're thinking about AI, agentic AI, as well as go-to-market? Where did the early steps start for you in terms of, hang on, AI and agents can start taking over go-to-market tasks more broadly? Tell me about those early days.
Yeah, so for me, the thought process started when I was, thinking, when I was writing this book, right? Because, you think about, also right down the road from you, Atlassian.
Yeah, they're here too.
Right. They literally, and I was two engineers who couldn't afford to hire salespeople who figured, hey, we're selling to other engineers. They don't like to talk to salespeople anyway. Why don't we just build a product that you can easily find and purchase on your own and deploy on your own? And, now they're a $57 billion company. But
Yeah.
that's all that's an automated go-to-market motion that we call product-led growth. And then it happened with DocuSign and Dropbox and Twilio and Zendesk and now it's in Zoom and Canva and Slack. Like we have all these examples of automated GTM. So that's in my brain. And then I see AI show up. And then I'm like, wait a second. Like it takes a while to program in GTM steps into a product. And I'd done it before. Like it takes a lot of iteration. But and the simpler the product, the easier it is to make it kind of PLGable. But now AI can actually handle complex things. It can handle multi-step processes. It can explain or help you configure. And I'm like, woo, that opens a whole world. And agents still weren't still the thing, but I could see it coming. Like it's coming. Like AI is going to step into this gap. If I can have a conversation with AI over just ChatGPT, 3 years ago, then why couldn't I have a conversation with AI about purchasing a product or configuring a product? Or of course I could. And now we've got the language to match that and the capability around agents. But Jeremy, some of those agents show up customer facing, like I was postulating, but there's some other stuff that happened that I really didn't see coming that's more about automating kind of behind the scenes. And all of that is super, super exciting.
It really is. And I think what you've teased out here is there's a level of automation, but the power is the reasoning capabilities, right? It's structured to be able to handle and think with guardrails, but it's doing activities without necessarily having been scripted, right?
Well, I love the guardrails concept. And you could think about those guardrails as a framework. So, if AI can do anything, what is it going to do? Oh, it's, that's where prompt engineering comes into play, and we're going to give it an objective. Okay, got it. But then within a framework, it can also be flexible without crossing over a guardrail. And this is why Winning by Design was a perfect place for me to collaborate and really go heads down, is because Winning by Design has the best frameworks in the world around GTM. Like, example is Spiced, which is a really, really simple framework for taking a human conversation and making it machine readable. We didn't think of it that way or Jocko didn't think of it that way when it was being invented. It was just a discovery framework. Situation. Let me find out the situation. Let me find out the pain. Let me find out the impact. Let me discover what the critical event is that we're working towards, and a decision. But now you think about agents are listening to all of our calls. Note takers are listening to all of our calls, and I could either just summarize the call as like a really good high level summary of what happened, or I can normalize the call to a framework like Spiced, and now it becomes machine readable because I can hand it off and I can increment that framework as I hand it off down the chain. There's lots of frameworks like that, processes and that an AI can operate within, but with enough flexibility to go make its own decisions within those guardrails that you were talking about. And that unlocks a lot of potential, in my opinion. So if you think about recurring revenue business, it, you bring a new customer into the journey, typical funnel stages, awareness, interest, education, decision, great, amazing. But that first commitment that a customer makes is the beginning of her journey, not the end of her journey. So a lot of our traditional sales and marketing funnels look like this, and they have a top and a bottom, and then they stop.
Right.
That just doesn't describe the whole thing. Like, what about onboarding and engagement and usage and renewal and expansion? Like, you could turn it on its side and turn it into like a bow tie, where the funnel actually opens back up as the customer expands their usage, shares with their colleagues, extends across departments. So I get a net revenue retention that's north of 100, and now I have a bow tie instead of a funnel. So now you think about, okay, that's the whole customer journey. Which pieces of that can be automated? A lot. I just sponsored a project at Winning by Design where we went and studied 8 different aspects of the Bowtie to figure out which agents are, currently deployed, what are the current verified case studies of real kind of benefit. And there's some really interesting ones that have come out, and not the ones that you would think. There was a lot of hype around the AI SDR, like inbound demand qualification. Got it. That's a thing. But here's one that I didn't see coming: AI coaching. So now I'm a salesperson, and I don't get a lot of chances to practice negotiating a high stakes deal because I only get my hooks into a high stakes kind of high dollar deal once in a while. What if, and by the way, my manager doesn't show up offering to role play with me enough either for me to hone my skills. What if I could just role play with an AI? I could get good at resolving concerns, at negotiating complex deals, at stakeholder management. That's like a thing. And it's way better than sitting through a training class and then hoping that I get to use that on game day and hoping that I'm sharp on game day. There's some other things, like tracking signal across the bow tie. Like there's a lot of information locked in this very conversation that you and I are having. If we were a customer and a seller, there'd be even more information. And a lot of that's in the word choice and the sentiment. And so if an AI is listening, an AI can not only summarize the conversation, but like I said, normalize it to something like spiced, and then start to point out, if I'm a prospect, what to pay attention to. If I'm an existing customer, what to pay attention to. And now I can handicap an overall pipeline management process with not what the rep thinks in her head or through her kind of quota-tainted glasses, but what the customer is actually saying in their own words, so that's a way better pipeline management setup than the one we had before. And there's lots of other examples, Jeremy. Like one of my favorites is renewals. Okay, I already have a contract. I've already negotiated the terms. I already have a price. I've already configured the solution. I've already deployed the solution. It's already creating benefit, and now we're at the 1-year birthday. Why don't I just say, yes, please, give me another year? But so many of us don't have automated renewals, like we insert a human at that point. Sometimes a human needs to get engaged, like if the customer's shaky or we have, but 80% of the time, why don't I just automate that renewal? So there's a lot of places that we can deploy automation, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's fantastic. As I'm thinking about this as, say, a SaaS leader, and I'm starting to look at my own bow tie, what are your recommendations for me to start? I'm not automating anything yet. I've got people across every stage of the bow tie. What would I start looking at as I'm thinking about AI opportunities, scaling up, potentially looking for a AI/human early stages?
Yeah.
Tell me where to start.
I love that you said AI/human too, because that's what our teams are going to look like in the future, right? Okay. We're going to be human, robot, human, robot. Like we're going to be hybrid teams managed by, I don't know, a human, a robot. I don't know. So we got to look forward to that, look ahead and kind of contemplate what that looks like. And having a framework in place that allows humans to be operating against the same playbook as robots is going to really help us. But you asked me, like, where would I start? I'm doing nothing. Nothing's automated. Yeah. I'm doing nothing. How do I stand on stage at my 2026 kickoff and say, guys, we've got some good early experience, some good early wins, and we're going in. So 3 places I would look at. One, I would definitely look into coaching. Coaching makes your people better. Coaching is something that managers don't have a lot of time to do. And coaching is something that you can fairly easily train an AI agent to do. You're not risking the relationship with the customer. You're not putting the agent out in between your, salespeople and the customer. This is literally, how do you help your salesperson get better at her job in a way that feels natural and that gives her lots of reps? Super easy to do. Second one that I would do is, or that I would look at, it depends on your go-to-market motion, but if you've done no automation, you're probably selling up-market kind of enterprise, and you may once in a while get an RFP Those are the worst. Nobody likes filling those in.
Right.
Like, how about an agent to help you do that? Like this is what AI is made for. AI is made to consume huge amounts of data and simplify it and get it into like a form that you want to use it in. That is an RFP. So if you've got an RFP repository or a product management or product description repository or a competitive database, feed that into an AI's brain and let an AI give you the first draft of your RFP. It'll make everybody happy, your SEs especially. And then the third one is the one that you and I talked about, just renewals. That's a super easy place to start. Renewals is super easy. If you've automated nothing, automate renewal. It's just about getting the click to accept option in front of a customer. And once you've proven that you can do that, you'll probably have the confidence to go figure out what you can automate next.
That is so practical, those three areas. That last one, I can understand the immediate implications because we can define a sequence of events and define automation opportunities across that. But I'd love to deep dive into the coaching one that you talked about, particularly because I think you're right. Sales teams they receive training either en masse or via a piece of software. But I wonder if the way that you're talking and the way that I'm starting to picture this is that the coaching from the agent is not just brand-based and not based on their sales playbook, but it's also tailoring itself to the individual's strength. Am I out of scope there, or is this where it's heading, where the agent can coach someone in the way that they need to be personally?
So I haven't seen it quite as elegant as you just described, but it is heading there. I think you are on the absolutely right track. And what it is not is one-dimensional, you used to, I already told listeners how old I am, 57, but way back in the day, reps were trained to give the pitch in the mirror or to be able to give the pitch on demand. Your manager shows up, you got to be able to give the pitch, and you certify on the pitch. That's not what this is. This is very interactive. The agent will interrupt you. The agent will ask you a hard question. The agent will go on a tangent, and you got to bring them back in. So elements of what you said are, I'm going to have to deploy as me being a human, not just reciting something, but responding to what I'm hearing. Elements of that are there today. Whether it's leaning into my individual strengths or not and getting to know me as a human, I haven't seen that piece yet, but that would be amazing.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I just defined my next product launch. So you've given us some good practical starting points. As a leader, I'm thinking about those starting points, but I'm also thinking in the context of a future of where we have this hybrid robot and human go-to-market motion. How do I evaluate success? Or how do I evaluate the steps being successfully taken on that journey when I can't really define what that journey is going to be beyond the next couple of months?
Oh my, this is such a good question. I just came off the road, spent the last, 10 days with go-to-market leaders in a couple of pretty major private equity portfolios. And this is one of the things they're asking too, because the private equity owners are leaning on the CEOs and the CROs to embrace AI. And the CEOs and CROs are asking the question that you're asking, okay, I'll do it, but how do I know when it's working? And what you really need is one thing that really resonated with these teams is if you can't measure an experiment, then why are you even running the experiment? An experiment with no measurement is no experiment at all. So I do need to indeed be able to measure, and I do need to be able to experiment because this is a brand new world and not everything's going to work the way it was advertised, right? So I'm going to experiment with stuff. For me, there are lots of ways, but the baseline kind of measurement is that bow tie. I'm going to actually delineate that bow tie into stages: awareness, education, selection, commit, onboarding, retention, expansion. If I'm in PLG, the names change, but the concept is the same. And then I'm going to define what it means to move from one stage to the next. And then I'm going to kind of measure how fast things are moving, at what conversion rate things are moving, and how many things are moving from it. Very simple data model. But if I have that, then I can run almost any experiment, because what I'm trying to do is either get things to move faster or more reliably or in greater quantity. So if I'm running kind of up funnel marketing experiences, it might be about getting more people into the top of the funnel or the left of the bow tie. If I'm running something around like automating my RFP kind of thing, I might be trying to get my SEs, my solution engineers, to cover more deals, because if they get leverage, SEs are always in short supply, right? You want a solution engineer on every deal. You can't afford it, so you only put it on your top deals. Well, maybe now I can get SEs to work on more deals, and I can actually show more expertise because they have, AI working for them in the background. Most of that I'm going to see in those bow tie metrics, and then I just got to define it carefully. I got to figure out if there's some leading indicator metrics that give me even earlier signal. And then what we talk about, Jeremy, is look for a minimum viable, everyone's heard those words, but minimum viable signal loop. A minimum viable signal loop. So what's an experiment that you can run that's the lightest weight possible that will tell you whether this is going to have an impact? And that's going to come in the way of signal. So just figure that out, get really quick kind of cycle time on that. If it's not really moving the needle, scrap it, move on to the next one. There's lots of opportunities for AI right now.
I love it. Minimum viable signal loop. I just needed to restate it so I remember that. That is awesome. In the evaluation, and as CEOs and CROs are thinking about the future of the composition of the go-to-market team and sales functions and the SEs, even SDRs, in what ways do you see roles fundamentally changing versus roles being replaced?
Yeah. It's a really good question. One lens to use, Jeremy, is just to think about like what is a robot better at than a human, and what is a human better at than a robot? That's just one lens.
Yeah.
Robots are, and when I say robot, I really mean AI, right?
Yeah.
AIs have better memory. They have better processing speed. They can process more information. They're better at time zones. They can scale better, and they can do more and they don't get tired. They can do repetitious tasks. So anything that has to do with kind of scaling or computational power or information retrieval and access or kind of large processing, let me give that to a robot. What are humans good at? We're good at empathy. We're good at reading body language. We're good at stakeholder management. We're good at politics. So anything that has to do with kind of helping a customer have the courage to move forward in a deal, robots can't do that nearly as well as you or I could. So a lot of the roles are going to kind of bifurcate like that. Like I think the AE is going to become more of a strategist, like a strategy partner for her customers. I think a CSM is going to become more of a strategist in terms of like deployment, like tactically within my organization. I think marketing is going to become more, this is a big one, is going to become more of a hero maker. Like turning my existing customers into heroes. It's not about can I spot the SEO or SEM arbitrage opportunity? No. It's about how do I get the narrative out there that puts the customer front and center. And I'm going to partner with a robot to do the rest of it. Then you go up a click and you think, okay, well, what about the managers? Managers are going to have a pretty broad span of control. Like once you have robots and humans working for you, one manager can do a lot more. And leveraging like a coaching agent to help my reps show up well, or an RFP agent to help my reps show up well, or a GTM intelligence agent to take away all the note taking and kind of pipeline tracking. I can do a lot more. So I think everybody's going to click up, and it's sort of like the Industrial Revolution where, hey, wait a minute. I used to be the guy that wielded the shovel. Where's my job going? Oh, you know where your job's going? It's going on the backhoe. You're going to operate a giant steam shovel, and now you're going to get a lot more work done. So don't get used to this, repetitive motion because the robots are going to take that over.
I think that's also a really elegant way of saying that the shift in roles and functions levels up in ways that, and I like how you're calling the individuals strategists more than anything, because it sounds like what you're saying is that the robots, the agents, the AI models aren't good at emotive intelligence. They're not good at empathy. They're not good at spotting and coaxing and maybe eliciting trust in ways that humans can only. And so these strategists who are leveling up also in their emotional intelligence at the same time are probably reaching heights that they never could have without these fundamental repetitive tasks taken from them. It sounds less of a threat.
Yeah, I think people will see it both ways, but I think the techno optimist way to see it is as an opportunity, right? Like I become AI fluent, and I lean into my humanity and I lean into my higher order thinking, and all of a sudden, I got career security for days.
Right.
I fight to keep a hold of that shovel because I really don't want a robot taking it over. That's probably not a smart career move.
Yeah. Well, on that note, what are the types of skill sets that you're starting to see become really valuable in this space then?
Systems thinking. It's a hard one. It's a hard one because we're not all kind of born systems thinkers, but this is the type of thing, that like I've got kids coming up through engineering and machine learning and kind of, technical fields. And everyone asks, well, wait a second, there's no jobs left for a CS grad. And it's true. Like Cal Berkeley had an 85% drop in their ability to place CS grads.
Wow.
Okay, great. But that's if you're somebody writing code, because guess what? Claude's writing the code now. But what if you're a systems thinker? Like you're actually thinking about the design, about what should happen, and about how decisions are made. Those people, Stanford's got a cool major called symbolic systems. Ironically, things like philosophers and pure mathematicians, they're systems thinkers, right? So if I can click up a level and think like a system, think about everything happens for a reason. What is that reason? How do I impact that reason? How do I string those reasons together? Okay, now I can actually program the robots. They'll do the repetitive stuff. I don't need to tell them move by move instructions. I just need to tell them how to think. And then they can go in and get these things done, to our earlier point. And it is a challenge, I'll admit it. Like not everyone is a philosopher, not everyone is a systems thinker, but we can push ourselves and let's do what we can.
You just got off the road, speaking to a lot of company leaders. This is a broad question, but what are common resistance points that you're hearing from boards and leadership teams?
Less of a resistance point and more of a just a genuine question. I mean, we're all humans. Like even CEOs are humans.
Yeah.
Even CFOs are humans, and we're just trying to go build shareholder value and build companies and and do well by our employees and our customers. And so often we'll have a conversation like the one you and I are having, and then a CEO will say, "That makes a ton of sense." And what do I do next? Like, how do I get started? Like, because all of the theory makes sense, the frameworks make sense, the what's possible makes sense, but also I'm running a business and I got to hit my numbers next quarter. And they don't say this to me, but I know it's true. I've got 2 lawsuits pending. I've got 1 executive I'm trying to exit from the company. I've got an open headcount somewhere else on my executive team. I've got customers, that are happy. I've got other customers that aren't, and I have a customer event coming in a month. CEO's got a lot going on. So when she hears this, she's like, yeah, but how do I get started? So what we really need is, again, probably systems thinkers to just help make it easy. Like, go first for an assistive use case. You don't have to replace humans all at once. You can just help them do their jobs better. Then go for maybe an agentic use case. Then go maybe for an orchestrated use case. But you don't have to do it all at once. You need to be able to start. You need to be able to measure. You need to be able to experiment. And the number one thing that I say to that person, to just help them kind of get out of their head when thinking that it's going to be, difficult, is just channel your inner architect. Like, think about these things like a system. It may be 10 years since you were hands-on designing a product, or hands-on designing a marketing flow, or hands-on designing a sales process. Now you need to do it again. Like, roll your sleeves up, because what got you here will not get you there. Like, doing more of what got you here is like committing to the past. But the rules have been redefined. So now you got to kind of transport yourself back into that architect mode, roll your sleeves up, go shoulder to shoulder with your other leaders, because what got them here is not going to get them forward either. And we got to figure this out together, which means an experimental mindset, a systems thinker mindset, measure everything. And your real race is against the AI native competitors that are coming to disrupt your space.
You mentioned earlier that this is all accelerating faster. And if we look at the last year, the speed has just been mind-blowing.
Crazy.
I look back even just 1 year and think about how far we've come just in 1 year. And even the way that you and I are talking here, we likely wouldn't have been just 1 year ago. As we look forward, and as you just talked about getting there, quote unquote, where do you see there in the next couple of years in terms of the maturity of AI-led go-to-market? What would be normalized by then?
It's wow, I got to put on my prophecy hat.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll get this right. But, no funding source, given that things are going faster, and then just to kind of underscore that point, and by the time I say this and this episode airs, it's going to sound like ancient history, but, Replit and Lovable and Cursor, they're all getting to 10, 20, 50, 100. Cursor got to, just last week announced they got to 500 million in ARR, and the last employee count we have for them is 30. It's probably more like 100, but it's not more than 100. 100 people, 500 million in ARR, like that's gravity defying. We've never seen that before. So now you're like, oh, what's going to be true a year from now? Like, a lot. We're going to figure out how much of that revenue is sustainable. We're going to figure out how much of it sticks. We're going to figure out like how much of our monetization models are going to be usage based, consumption based versus month to month versus annual contracts. Right now in SaaS, we think a lot about ARR, but I think a lot of that is going to get challenged over the next few years. And then you're going to turn around and say, all right, well, how much of my customer's journey is going to be self-guided versus human assisted versus AI assisted? And I really believe it will be super normal, Jeremy, for the best companies to put that put that decision in the customer's hands. So like, we're using a platform right now, like you said, for recording a two-way conversation, to video that's super high kind of fidelity and manages both the video and the audio. I bet you never talked to a salesperson to buy this. And if you did, you wouldn't have to a year from now. And if you had questions when you were trying to buy this platform, you'd ask a robot, and the robot would say, oh, you're doing that? Okay, got it. So here's what you want to think about, and you need the silver package. And you'd be like, okay, thank you so much, and I'll come back when I need help. And then if you got stuck with something, you'd be helped. That's going to be totally normal to you. And then at some point, you might raise your hand and say, this has been great, but now I got to integrate it into blah, blah, blah thing that I use, and I really would like to talk to a human before I do that. Cool, let me put a human on the phone. It's just going to be up to you. You're going to guide your own journey, in my opinion, and I think we're just going to see that as normal. Right now, sometimes we get forced to talk to a robot when we don't want to, and we get super frustrated. We're in a phone tree with AT&T or Bank of America or whatever, and we can't just give me a human. Or sometimes we get forced to talk to a human, and we're like, I didn't want to commit 30 minutes of my life to a demo. All I had was one question I wanted answered, but that stuff's going to converge, and we're going to be able to choose what we want when we want it.
No, fascinating. Just to close us off, you mentioned you'd been working on a book, that you'd been learning so much about this whole world by writing this book. It's coming out this year on Stanford University Press. Tell me more.
Thank you so much. Thanks for asking. Yeah, it's been 3 years in the making, and a lot changed even over those 3 years. It was like started writing right as we were seeing the core AI models come out, and as I said, I could see kind of what that was going to do for product-led growth. I went and studied a few different archetypes, like the from scratch companies that built like Atlassian from the ground up. We're not going to hire salespeople, like as a matter of principle. And when we do, it's going to be to help existing customers, not to sell to new customers. Atlassian's a fascinating story. And then companies who started sales-led and then added in product-led. So that's like a HubSpot or a MongoDB. Like we started in a totally different way, and then we had to kind of go retrofit PLG into our model. And then there's a bunch of really interesting use cases, which I think get way more interesting once AI arrives, which is non-software and complicated products. So you see everything like in my book from SAP, which is like the world's most complicated product. How could that ever go to market in a self-service way? They're actually innovating on that front. You would never think it, with interactive demos and sandboxes to kind of pull you in before you have to make a decision. And then companies like John Deere, the tractor company, who's literally turning the tractor into an information node on the farm to then figure out what supplies need to come in, what the soil composition is, what the current moisture profile is, what the fertilizer, what the pest control needs to be, and then precision application. It's becoming like a moving computer and information node that really allows commerce to kind of flow into the farm in a way that we've never had before. So I think it's pretty exciting. The book comes out August 26th, and you can pre-order it now. And it gets you started on the conversation, but it doesn't get you started with your sleeves rolled up. That's something you got to do yourself.
I can't wait to get my hands on a copy. This is very cool stuff. Dave, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you for what you're doing.
I love it, Jeremy. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.